are you grateful for your time in the military? Because in a way, it probably prepared you to be more cautious, more aware, more hypersensitive to the changes that could come.
No, yeah, I definitely, first and foremost, yes, I adored the 4 years that I served in the service. I felt like, what I learned in real life scenario or situation will never, I'll never learn that in 4 years of college. I'll never learn that anywhere else. It was kind of like, I think it's for many, it's just the perfect avenue when you get out of high school and you're not sure what the heck to do with yourself. And you join the service and realize, you serve a higher purpose and, and serve your country. That with it coming in with that is, the job of doing it all and everything is just so much, it gives you, so much pride. It gives you so much more awareness. The traveling I've done in the service, everything, the different countries I've been to, just the broadening of my horizons, period. Through all that is definitely something I always cherish and always look back and to this day I got lifelong friends from all kinds of different duty stations that I know all across the United States, and we meet up for every 5 or 10 year reunion. We meet up and and have a good time and laugh about you remember when we were in South Korea and this happened and that happened or whatever. So yeah, I definitely cherish that part, and I cherish also what I learned there, and everything from the discipline to everything else that kind of fits in and kind of models my life ever since then, going on till now.
I think there's a fraternal bond there, huh? There's a fraternal bond in the military. There's a fraternal bond in the fire service. I experienced it to some degree in graduate school, where you're in kind of the same boat together and you're getting your butts kicked, and, you got to cooperate and you rely on each other for support and help. Right.
Yep. There's no bond made stronger than when you suffer together with somebody. Sometimes how I said, and although I was never in a combat situation, I got out just before the 9/11, and everything that ensued from there. But I use that reference a lot with the endurance world and a lot of the endurance things that challenges I take on, because there's certain endurance challenges that, when you suffer with another person side by side, it's kind of it's a kinship and a brotherhood that, that bonds and lasts forever. So,
when Steve and I were talking about some of the stuff that you've accomplished, which is amazing. Yeah. One of the things that comes to my mind, Andy, is endurance. Exactly. That's a critical word. Talk more about that. What does that mean during this COVID thing moving forward? I mean, you're kind of, you've done a long distance skates, up to 300 miles?
Right. So we have this crazy event that's called the 24-hour ultra skate. And the premise of the race is, how far can you go on a skateboard in 24 hours? Now, we set this up at a speedway, the Homestead Speedway, down here in Miami. And so basically you ride around this loop track, so we have a set course. Everybody's time chipped. It counts your laps for you. And we set the clock at 8 a.m. and and the clock ends at 8 a.m. the next morning, and you see what you can do within those 24 hours. If you want to skate a little bit or skate a lot, we got all different walks of life. But of course, like my wife always says, I can't do anything halfway. I do it either all the way or I don't do it at all.
Yeah.
So I got into that. I got into the sport, and I really kind of fell in love with that kind of premise of 24 hours. And it kind of fit perfect with how I work. I work 24-hour shifts on the fire department. It's kind of it's just kind of a normal, it's a normal sleep circadian for me to be, to be up and working for 24 hours and be sleep deprived. But I did, I did really well in this event, and I ended up for a stretch of 4 or 5 years there. I kept breaking world records in it, starting all the way from 260 miles was my initial world record that I had, and I upped it all the way up to the point of surpassing 300 miles, which was that was kind of like our version of the 4-minute mile. Was always the question is, could we break 300 miles? And so over a span of 4 or 5 years there, I trained and constantly competed at this event, and another one over in Europe too, where they have one, and back and forth, and eventually was the first guy to crack that 300-mile barrier.
Yeah, there's a documentary film called Push the Film. It's actually out on it's on YouTube now, and it came out this spring. It's a really well done documentary film about endurance skateboarding, and Andy's kind of by nature of who he is, obviously one of the focal points of the film, and this push to reach 300 miles.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Todd Hedge, awesome, directed it, did a great job with it. I've participated in a lot of these events with Andy, and I use the word participate. He uses the word compete, because I go for, I have my own goals that I set up and things like that. I enjoy the sport of skateboarding. I always have. Then I was like, of course, as you know, I'm from Homestead, Florida. So I'm like getting into this sport, and I'm like, wait a minute, they have this thing 24 hours on the speedway in my hometown. So I had to go down there for that. So it's been fun watching, being a participant, as I said, and having my own goals, but also being there when you accomplish these things. So when I went back to watch the documentary, I was like, oh, I remember that. I was right there when you broke that world record. And then, of course, the goal was that 300 miles. And the really crazy thing about that shows the endurance, and then also how, going back to what you just said a few minutes ago about, persevering together, that was the same time Eric Palmer, 300 was this mark that no one could ever make.
We had two guys that cracked it, and that was kind of, it was kind of like that perfect setting where we had the right competition on the field. It was, the setting was right. Everybody had it in their mind, like, we're really going for this thing, and it ended up working out. And I was actually very happy that somebody else hit it. So it didn't seem like at the time that it was a fluke, that maybe, he just drafted people or, got it easy or whatever. So it showed that a couple of us hit it. And since I hit that mark 4 years ago now, it was 4 years ago when I did that, we've had, 10 guys join the 300-mile club, so there's,
wow.
It's now, it's a bar, an attainable bar.
Here's a picture I'm showing right there. That was,
oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. That was probably just a lap or two before you did it. That was that morning, which, considering you were about to crack 300 miles and you got that look on your face, I don't know if it's just delirium or what's going on there when you're at that moment.
Yeah, it's partly being your poker face is you got to play like you're not hurt and nothing is bothering you. But inside I was crying. I was crying hours ago before that. I was just waiting for the sun to get up to try to give me some light at the end of the tunnel and make me realize, like, all right, there's only 4 hours left, man. You did 20 of the 24. Just hold the pace, hold 13 miles an hour, and you got this, You've
done a few century rides, Andy, over the course of time, and 100 miles on a bike is one thing, but 300 miles on a skateboard.
I tell you what, I got a lot of respect for somebody sitting in a saddle for 100 miles.
Oh man, I've only done a handful of them, but
and I tell you what, man, I wanted to check off the Ironman off my bucket list. So one year I put the skateboard away and I trained the 3 disciplines. And I just remember I was like, I got on that damn tri-bike. And I hated that position. I hated that damn saddle,
Right.
And
right.
I was just like, this is the most annoying thing ever. So it was
How
funny
far did
because
you take it?
I completed the Florida Ironman. So I did a couple local events, got prepped, and then did the Florida Ironman at the end of the year.
Good for you, man.
And got my Ironman
Right
Ironman
on.
checked off the bucket list. But I remember doing there's this one event called STP. It's Seattle to Portland, and it's like 10,000 cyclists do this 2-day ride from Seattle to Portland, 200 miles, open road, and so me and a couple of my friends joined up with it on our longboards, and and it was fun. They got a lot of support from the cyclists. They thought we were crazy that we're out there for doing all this open road skating and stuff. And they were just like, and I remember they're like, you're crazy, man. You're riding your skateboard for 200 miles. I'm like, you're going to sit in that saddle. I'm like, you're going to sit in that saddle for 200 miles. I'm like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, so
Thank you for joining us in the Barracks. To learn more about our hosts, guests, and how to support Vets Mobile Dental Unit, visit www.inthebarracks.org.